In the meantime, for investors, the French President Emmanuel Macron being re-elected for a second term meant continuity for the stock market. Investment manager Julien Quitzebert said Macron was a pro-Europe and pro-business president and that a surprise Le Pen win would have disrupted markets with questions over France's future in the European Union and continued support for Ukraine. However, he said that there was still a period of market uncertainty ahead of parliamentary elections in June, and that was difficult to say if Macron's La République En Marche party would keep its majority in parliament. Joining us now is former Nigerian ambassador to France and career diplomat, Ambassador Akin Fayomi. He joins us now from Abuja virtually. Thank you, Ambassador, for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Ambassador, were you surprised by Mr. Macron's victory and the significance it holds for France and his government?
I will not be surprised at all that Emmanuel Macron came back to power. You've been following the politics. Indeed, the nation is divided, quite all right, but then you will see that the French are still not ready for a national rally presidency. The far right is rather too strict for them, and they would rather stick to the devil that they know than dine with the devil that they do not know. In as much as Mr. Macron himself knows that he has not performed as creditably as he would have loved to, or as the people would have liked him to. He also knew that he can bank or work on their disenchantment with the National Party of Marine Le Pen. It's not yet time, I think, that they will succumb to the National Rally Party presidency, just like they didn't do throughout the time of Marine Le Pen's father, Jean-Marie Le Pen. And I know that for now, the far right still has a lot of rebranding to do before they can claim the French presidency.
But she accused Macron of dirty tactics during the campaign. Many said during her speech she didn't take the loss well, didn't congratulate Macron, but then she lost by a wide margin. And this is her fourth attempt. What could she do now? What do you think of the future for her? Do you think she might try again next elections?
I will advise Madame Le Pen not to try again. Not that the party should not try again, but herself, her personality, maybe she needs to give it a rest and let a younger, fresher, dynamic party member of the far right take over the leadership. The party needs to rebrand itself critically. Like I said earlier on, the stance on immigration, for instance, won't get them far. About 1 out of 20 of the French population is of African descent, and majority of the ones from African descent are by and largely Islamic by religion, mostly North Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria. They're all over France. And then West Africa here too, Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, DRC, they're all there. And they would not want to see such a strict person coming in to say immigration will be stopped or to be affected. She's going to clamp down on immigration, the ban on hijab and all that. She's going, and then she's going to pull out France probably from the EU. Or also likely from NATO. It's just not going to work if the party believes that all those attributes of theirs will win them any credible voter margin. They need to rebrand the party. It's not dead. It's never been dead. It's good to have a credible opposition in any democracy. The far right has always been, but they need to regroup themselves and to rebrand so that the policy, the manifesto they will bring out will appeal more to voters, not just 42. That's a big number, but they will need to cross 50 before they can gain the presidency.
Yeah, and I know her supporters felt really hurt by the fact that she didn't win this time. But I know that Macron also didn't have it easy during this election. I mean, there were reports of some people putting blank ballots into the box. But he's promised, despite that, to reunite France and to pull in those from the opposition. he still does have a lot of opposition against him. I mean, there were protests in Paris last night. Looking at his future, though, what do you think, about him, the effort he will have to make in reuniting France? Because as it is, the country is still divided.
Very much so, very much so. He has 5 years to get his act together. He knew that he didn't do very well. He said so in his acceptance speech, that for 42% of his citizens, of his compatriots, to move to the far right, it means that something is not gelling with his administration. And if you watched it, and I'm sure the last thing he said was that I'm going to carry everybody on board. I'm going to be president of all France. And he said that we are not going to continue the last administration. That's very loaded. It means that he realizes that the policies of the last administration have not been too accepted or well received by the populace. So that was why he said he's going to revive the administration, not continue. That means that he himself has taken that on board. He knows that he has to do a lot to divide, to unite France. You all remember the yellow vest issues, unemployment, youth, running rampage, industrialization and all that. So he has to also come up with good advisors, good team. And in the fact that he has acknowledged that he needs to revamp his administration, shows that he already appreciates the fact that he doesn't have so much goodwill with the French. They only voted for him because they didn't want the far right to come in. So they didn't really vote for his administration. They more or less voted for putting off the Marine Le Pen's party. So in other words, it was not him that could say he creditably won the election. He will attribute it to the fact that people prefer to still stay with him than to start afresh with Marine Le Pen, who didn't give them a credible manifesto in the first instance.
Yeah, and I think he acknowledged that in his speech as well. And also in his speech, he spoke about Ukraine and the war there. He's been, quite visible in trying to mediate in this in this crisis. Remember the trips he made to Russia, where he met with Vladimir Putin, trying to convince him even before the invasion of Ukraine. And then now he's promised even full support for Ukraine. Looking at, the promises he's made about the next 5 years being different, what do you think he means by, full support?
Yes, Mr. Macron has always had full support for President Zelensky of Ukraine. Yes, he's a good mediator in this conflict. But you can see that even President Putin had congratulated him straight away last night. So he's not in anybody's camp. But Mr. Zelensky enjoys Macron's support. He said so in an interview he granted recently, where he was even interrupted in the interview by an aide bringing his telephone to him, the mobile phone. And who was it? He was saying, Emmanuel, give me a minute and all that. So he told the interviewer that was President Macron calling him. So it means they enjoy good rapport for him to be calling. And even acknowledge that virtually on a daily basis, Macron calls him to give him moral support, to promise him support from the EU, of which France is a very strong member. It's the second largest economy in the EU, as well as the largest military force in the EU. So that means they are also very strong in NATO. So he can persuade President Biden, persuade Boris Johnson, persuade Olaf Scholz from Germany, all of them to mobilize support. And I think they are doing it. They won't go into the newspapers to tell us so much of what they are doing. The Americans do that, 800 million of aid sent recently and all that. But the French are also, they've always been in support of Ukraine. And Mr. Macron particularly even took it further, because even the French accused him that he was not paying so much attention to domestic matters. Instead, he was seen more as a statesman on the international stage. So that he has cultivated that habit. And I think that Mr. Zelensky, by mentioning him on an interview, means that he will even get more support from Mr. Macron, because it shows that they have good rapport, good chemistry. And is bound to lend that support and to persuade the EU and NATO to step up their support for Ukraine in this needless conflict that we are in.
And finally, Ambassador, what about Nigeria's relations with France under Macron? What are your predictions?
I won't see any changes. If you see the manifesto of the two parties, even, there was hardly any mention of Africa. Even at the election debate they had, only one thing on immigration, which dwarfed Africa per se. So that means there really no Franco-African policy that will change. In other words, we continue. We are the largest trading partner on this continent. That's Nigeria. We continue trading with them. It's going on. Lafarge is here, Boeings is here, Total is here. So business continues. At the same time, diplomacy will also continue. But I'm not expecting so much changes from him. You can see the Sahel. He had problem in Mali. They had to pull out. They chased them out of Mali, and ambassador was also recalled and all that. So the ISWAP is also making efforts there. Russia is stepping into that gap for Mali, getting arms and things from Russia now. So France, they are losing their grip, their influence on the African continent, because they don't pay so much attention to us here. They believe that anything they want to come do is to come and help us against terrorists and ISWAP and all that. And that's not how it is. If I were one of his advisors, I would tell him to go back to the days of de Gaulle, when the special advisor on Africa was as powerful as the foreign minister in France, because they pay so much attention to what is going on this continent. But now they are more Eurocentrist, and that's their loss anyway. So we need to also step up our game and not wait and depend or rely on any foreign assistance or aid, as it were.
I think European leaders have been trying to send that message across over the last couple of years. Ambassador Fayomi, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Still ahead on The World Today. In the United States, body cam footage shows how